Hey, Kevin, been painting?
Yeah, but not with my fingers. Mike wrote in the other day and said, could you talk a little about preparation for when you're going to send a piece to a powder coater? What do we have to do before we even take it out of the studio and take it down to them? I thought, that's a really, really good question. So this is Prickly Passion. This is a commission of it's one of them silly purple prickly pear cactus that we have out here in the desert. I don't know the correct name. And this is going to a private sculpture garden back in New York State. Well, I sent this down to the powder coater. So some of the little things you have to watch out for. You have to keep in your head, I've got to get all this done before I ever even take it out. See the little spatter right here? I missed it. I should have ground that off with the grinder because I was going around hitting all the pads. You know, I'd have a glove on one hand with the grinder. I'd have a bare hand on the other end, and I'd go around and feel it. You know, without even watching, I'd just put my hand up there and just run my hand over, just looking for any kind of a rough texture. And then you come over with the grinder and just touch it and get rid of it. Another thing to keep in mind, especially with a multiple part piece like this, where you've got different parts all welded together. These pads, this pad, they're solid. They're just one piece of 1/4 inch plate. These pads are hollow inside. So now you've got to close a vessel. So where I welded this pad onto this pad, I drilled a little hole. So this one is vented into this one. This one is vented into this one. If we flipped it over, and no, I'm not going to, you'd find underneath this bottom pad where it's welded to the base, there's a little 1/8 inch hole drilled through the base. So all of the hollow vessels are all vented. Otherwise, if you leave them closed, when they put it in the oven and they take it up to 475 degrees, I think it is, the air inside gets hot enough that now it can blow out a little. It'll vent. If you have any imperfection in your weld anywhere, that superheated air inside will blow out. It'll crack a weld. It'll find a little porosity, whatever. Poof. Now you've got a hole. It's nicely powder coated, but you've got a hole. You know, so that's something to watch out for. Normally what I would do with a piece like this once I was done fabricating is I would take it to a sandblaster, have the whole thing sandblasted, bring it back here and inspect all the welds, inspect all the joints, or any seam or anything, looking for any porosity, looking for any cracks, looking for any thin weld or anything that's going to give me a problem later on once it gets to the powder coater and they coat it and bake it. Always try to have holes somewhere that they can hang the piece up by, because they're normally sandblasted and sprayed, powder coated, hanging upside down on a big rack with big wheels on it. So they have to have some way to hold these things up in the air. Whether it's the mounting holes that I have here that are for the anchors, that they'll bolt it down once it gets to its location, or you can go underneath it, like this is too small to do it with, but some of my bigger pieces, I just go underneath where the piece is welded to the plate and cut a couple of holes in there so they can run a chain through it to hang them upside down with. And that also vents the piece itself so you don't have any closed vessel issues. So here are the scratches from where I ground off the dross after I cut this piece with the plasma cutter. Here's another big gouge in it where it slid across the bench and there was just some grit underneath it, left a little gouge in it. A few more gouges over in here. Those are all going to show up. Even if they sandblast it, it might mute them just a little, but all of those little gur marks, all those gouges, they're all going to show up in the powder coat. Now see, I went over this with the same 40 grit that I was using to make those gouges, or make those gur marks with. Just go over the whole surface with that 40 grit, just get it all the same. Hit it with, 40 grit, 60, 80, I mean, whatever you're using. If I was going to powder coat this piece, which I'm not, it's just, I'm going to leave it oxidized. But I would come in with, like the 40, get it all one texture. Come back with some 80, just a quick little buzz. Maybe come back with some 100, just a quick little buzz on it. Just to smooth it off, but have it all the same texture. So that way, when you powder coat it, you don't have a big right across the middle of it because you missed a mark, you missed a gouge, you missed a scrape, whatever. All of those things are going to show up. In your email, Mike, you also asked, well, what about when I get down there? Are there any kind of code words? Are there, they're going to ask me, do I want to do this or that? Or, what do I have to expect when I get down there? Well, two things really. Is it going to be an indoor piece or an outdoor piece? Because there's two different types of powder coat, indoor and outdoor. What kind of surface preparation do you want under the powder coat? Do you want to prime it, or do you just want to powder coat it? Normally, for like my fountains, I want to prime it and bake it, and then powder coat it and bake it, and then clear coat it and bake it, to just try to seal it the best I possibly can. All three of those you can do. Or you could just put powder on it. If it's going to be an indoor piece, a small piece, sit on the shelf somewhere, just put powder on it and you're done. All depends on what you're doing with it. But keep that in mind. Indoor and outdoor powder coat, they're both available. And now as far as the finishes go, well, of course you've got matte finishes, kind of a dull finish. You've got semi-gloss or satin finishes. You've got gloss finishes, like on a car, bright, shiny, reflects everything. All different decisions you have to make, once you get over there and you look at that big board full of color and go, woo, that one. So something else to keep in mind, which kind of finish do you want, If you want multiple colors, now a lot of powder coat companies are, they get kind of grumbly about it. They just want to do like one color and be done with it. But you can get them, if you insist, you can get them to either come in and tape off a piece, where they spray one color over here, tape that one off, and then spray the other color, and then bake it that way, and have, two distinct colors. Or, like I did on this piece called Fire Stick, you see how these colors are all, I've got, 4 different colors on there? And what we told them was, no tape. Start at the top, spray to the bottom. Don't worry about the overspray, because that's going to help them blend. That's going to give it more of a natural kind of pattern rather than aligned with one color and then the other. So you have to request that. You have to ask for that. Talk to the people, make sure they'll do it. They may say no. You'll have to go someplace else and find somebody else that'll do it, but you can get it done. Oh yeah, and one other option for you. Just one more thing to keep in mind. Some guys like to get a piece all bright and shiny. They like to sand it and grind it and get it all pretty, and then just have it clear coated. No sandblast. Your finish has to be perfect when you take it down there, because all they're going to do is wipe it down with acetone to get any dust off of it, get any oil from your hands or your gloves off of it, and spray it. So if there's an imperfection in it, it's there. It's going to show up like a sore thumb. So Mike, I hope that answers your questions. Doesn't give you too many things to think about while you're going over there. It just kind of help push you in the right direction. Speaking of pushing, why don't you guys pop out to Instagram, Kevin Caron Art. Come like me out there, follow my work out there. I take pictures with my phone, post it right to Instagram as I'm working, and it pops over to Facebook sometimes if I push all the right buttons, but come check me out on Instagram too. I'm going to cover her up so she stays nice and clean so we can ship her, and I'm going to go back to work. I'll see you guys next time. So, this is Purple Passion. No.